Namaskar. Thank you for joining us on talk session, our talk session with Major General G.D. Bakshiji. Our topic today is India before and after abrogation of Article 370 and beyond. Major General G.D. Bakshi, a very well-known public figure, everyone knows him. But before being a public figure, he is a brave son of Mother India and has made us all very proud, both by showing his valor in the battlefield and also in the talk shows where he talks and where he shows his valor on the talk shows where trained and experienced anchors and intellectuals fell short of words in front of his knowledge, his wisdom and facts. Please welcome Major General G.D. Bakshiji on our page, International Dogra Society. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you indeed for having me.
Thank you. So, sir, just before I start, I would really like you to give us a bit of your background, especially your connection with our with Dogra land, or let's say princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. How are you connected with Jammu?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that generous introduction. And let me stay up front. I was born in Jammu. So I am a citizen of so-called Jammu and Kashmir state, erstwhile, now Union Territory of India, of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. Let that be very plain. I was born in Jammu. My father was the Chief Education Officer of the Jammu and Kashmir State Forces under Maharaja Hari Singh. And he was a Darbari of the Maharaja, and he used to take part in his darbars. He was personal tutor to Yuvraj Karan Singh as the Chief Education Officer of the J&K State Forces. So our links go back to the Jammu and Kashmir state in a very historical fashion. The J&K State Forces, as you are aware, subsequently became the Jammu and Kashmir Rifles of the Indian Army, a regiment of the Indian Army, separate regiment, a very decorated regiment of the Indian Army. And my elder brother, Captain Srishti Raman Bakshi, he joined the 11th Battalion, the Jammu and Kashmir Rifles. And at the age of 23, he was martyred in the 1965 war with Pakistan. And just a year later, I applied for the NDA. And a year and a half later, 67 June, I was in the NDA. I passed out with the batch of 1971, which had been commissioned a month before the war. And we were directly sent into the war. And, well, we suffered the maximum. But our course was at the cutting edge when India broke Pakistan into two. And thereafter, I had also joined, I had also joined the 6th Battalion, the Jammu and Kashmir Rifles. That was my parental regiment, which my father and my elder brother had served. And then I commanded 6th Battalion, Jammu and Kashmir Rifles, which incidentally was also commanded by Brigadier Rajinder Singh, MVC, the first Mahavir Chakra of independent India. And subsequently, of course, I went on to command a brigade in the Rashtriya Rifles and then a division in Rajouri and Poonch. So the bulk of my service was spent fighting in Jammu and Kashmir, including Kargil. And, I have the bulk of my military life and career spent in that state. So I think that is a very deep association with Jammu and Kashmir and with the Dogras. And I am myself a product of Jammu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a great pleasure, and I think not many of us would know about your connection with Jammu. So it gives me immense pleasure to know about your connection where your grandparents were even associated with Maharaja Hari Singh, Karpar, and then your father served in the army, and your elder brother, and now yourself. So it gives. I'm sure it gives a lot of motivation to the youth as well, where when they would hear and see your life, and how you have come into the army and served. 3 generations have served the mother country. It would, I'm sure, motivate many more to join the armed forces and perhaps serve for many generations. But today, our main objective, sir, is to discuss the India, how abrogation of Article 370 has been in last 1 year for India as a nation. So I would like to get your input on how you see this whole change which was done last year, though it was a historic moment for the whole nation, and it was one of those decisions which we were not anticipating, or we wanted to happen but never knew whether it will happen or not. So how do you see it? How has India been in last 1 year, and before and after the abrogation of article?
Thank you very much. So you see, at the outset, I'd like to re-emphasize that whatever I'm saying has a very personal standpoint, because my own family history is very deeply intertwined with the history of the Jammu and Kashmir state, and I've spent the bulk of my life fighting to keep the Pakistanis out of that state, and to see that because of some misguided elements, that state is not allowed to secede from the union. We paid a price for it in blood, but we will continue to pay that price. But let it be assured to everyone that J&K is a part of India, and when I was serving there and I had to speak to the people there, I had to address the people of Kishtwar when I took over as the sector commander. So I told them, have no doubts that 10,000 years from today, the Indian tricolor will still be fluttering proudly in Jammu and Kashmir. So any one of you who nurture, fond hopes that one fine day the Indian army will just vanish like dew from the grass, and you can think again. We are here to stay. There is no question of India giving up even an inch of Jammu and Kashmir. And what is more is, hopefully we will be able to reintegrate POK and whatever we have lost of the territory of Jammu and Kashmir in the years and months ahead. So with that as a preamble, let me first go back to how this entire integration of the state took place. A bit of historical background is essential. Like
Sure.
I told you, it is Maharaja Gulab Singh, the ancestor of Maharaja Hari Singh, who founded the state of Jammu and Kashmir. He had joined as an ordinary trooper in the army of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And he impressed him by his great talent at soldiering and administration. And he rose to be a general in Maharaja Ranjit Singh's army. And Ranjit Singh was so impressed by the exploits of Gulab Singh that he made him the Raja of the Jammu Jagir, and that is how he began his career. And after the breakup of the Sikh Empire, the Treaty of Amritsar, 1846, that is when, the whole state of Jammu and Kashmir was purchased. The Jammu was already part of the territory. Jammu Kishtwar was part of the territories of the Raja of Jammu. And then he purchased the state of Kashmir from the British for a princely sum of, if I remember correctly, 76 lakh rupees. What must be remembered is that it is the Dogra force of arms which formed the state of Jammu and Kashmir. It is the might of Dogra arms. It is General Zorawar Singh, who was the Wazir of Kishtwar, who was the governor of Kishtwar. And I have served in Kishtwar as a sector commander. So I have personally seen that area and visited all the routes that General Zorawar Singh took. In 1835, he set out for the conquest of Ladakh. He launched 5 campaigns. In the first campaign, he conquered Ladakh, and there were 5 revolts in Ladakh which he went to subdue. One by the Machel route, by the what is called the Navapachi route, or the Marud Vridha River route, Maru route to Ladakh. And then he went over the Umasila, 5,000 400 meters high Umasila pass to crush the revolts that had taken place in Ladakh. In 1841, he set out with a combined army of Dogras and Ladakhis, and he captured Baltistan, that is the Skardu, Hunza, Gilgit province, which is now part of POK. He captured that area for India, and thereby he gave India a strategic window into the heartland of Asia, into Xinjiang and beyond into Afghanistan. Afghanistan borders India because of the conquest that General Zorawar Singh did, right? Let us not forget that.
Yeah.
And in 1841, he launched an expedition into Tibet. He marched 800 kilometers into Tibet to the Mansarovar Lake. He fought with a combined Chinese-Tibetan force on the border of the Mansarovar Lake, and he captured the famous Mantalai flag, which still adorns the officers' mess and the museum of the Jammu and Kashmir Rifle. Right? That Mantalai Chinese flag is one of our proudest possessions. And the only unit in the Indian Army which has what is called a Chinese flag in its possession is the Mantalai flag, which is in the possession of Jammu and Kashmir Rifles. So, to reiterate, Jammu and Kashmir was formed with the force of Dogra arms. If it is a state today, it is because of the Dogra military might. And the pity is that the Dogras have been reduced to vassal status in the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir by a new sultanate of the Abdullahs, which was put into place by Nehru. You know, and by default they became the conquistadors of the whole of Jammu and Kashmir, and they made a colonial kind of a Raj in which Kashmir now ruled over Jammu, Kashmir now ruled over Ladakh. It is a traversity of history. And what an insult, you know, to the Dogra might, to the Dogra arms, which created the state of Jammu and Kashmir with the force of arms by driving out the Pathans, the Afghans, and the rest of them, by capturing Gilgit-Baltistan, by capturing Ladakh, by almost taking the whole of Tibet up to the holy Mansarovar lakes. I mean, nobody else in history has been able to do that. So, the state was formed by the Dogras and unfortunately given away by Nehru to a sultanate of the Abdullahs. You know, an amirate of the Abdullahs which he established. So, let me now come to the more recent history. 1947, India was, as you are all aware, and unfortunately Maharaja Hari Singh, vacillated. He was not sure whether he should accede to India or Pakistan, or whether he should stay neutral. Of course, he was very clear about not acceding to Pakistan. The choice was between staying neutral or acceding to India. And let me also tell you why he was vacillating. He had a guru called Mahantji, and he had an inordinate amount of influence over Maharaja Hari Singh. And he told Maharaja Hari Singh that I see your banner fluttering from the ports of Sialkot and beyond. So this gave some hope to Maharaja Hari Singh that possibly the Jammu and Kashmir kingdom would be expanded, and he would become something like a Asian Switzerland. And unfortunately, because of that, he delayed. He got into a standstill agreement both with India and Pakistan was supposed to send in petrol, diesel, oil, rations, foodstuffs, etc. And Pakistan started a blockade. And then Pakistan sent in the Lashkars, the tribal Lashkars, to invade and plunder and destroy the state of Jammu and Kashmir and absorb it by force. And they let loose a reign of terror. We had just 9 battalions of Jammu and Kashmir Rifles, then Jammu and Kashmir State Infantry, and they were spread all along the border. And ultimately they did treachery. And 4th Battalion Jammu and Kashmir Rifle, which had 2 companies of Muslims and 2 companies of Dogras, Sikhs in fact. The Muslims, they were subverted by Pakistan, and they revolted, and at night they slaughtered their own comrades while they were sleeping. And suddenly the gates to Srinagar lay wide open. The Maharaja was there, and that was the time the situation became very desperate. He sent Brigadier Rajinder Singh himself. He was the commander of the Jammu and Kashmir state forces, and the chief of staff rather of the state forces. And he could have sent any captain or major forward, but he went himself, realizing how grave the situation was. And he gained 48 crucial hours in which the Indian army could fly in and the Maharaja could accede to Jammu, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, to the Union of India. 48 crucial hours. He is the real savior of Kashmir, and unfortunately he should have been given the Paramveer Chakra, but he was given independent India's first Mahavir Chakra, which is again one of the very sad facts of history, which needs to be corrected. I think we Dogras should raise our voice that posthumously his award should be enhanced from PVC, from MVC to PVC.
PVC.
Now the state of Jammu and Kashmir acceded to India. The Maharaja signed the instrument of accession. That should have been final, full and final accession. There were no ifs and buts in the Maharaja's instrument of accession. All the 562 states of India that have acceded to India have done so with the same instrument of accession. So why was Jammu and Kashmir, just in recognition of a part of Kashmir had a slight Muslim majority? I mean, so what? India is a secular state. We have the world's second largest population of Muslims. Why should there is no special status for the Muslims in the rest of India? Why should it have been given for Jammu and Kashmir? It was a diversity. It was a nonsense created. And it was, by the mischief of Mountbatten. Nehru had appointed Mountbatten to be the first Governor General of India, which is again a very sad diversity of Indian history. The British, who should have been kicked out in 47, after 200 years of colonial rule and exploitation, in which $45 trillion worth they have sucked out of India for the industrialization of Great Britain. $45 trillion. And 7 great famines. And in the last famine of 43, 3.5 million Indians died. That is what the British did to India. They should have been thrown out. But here they handed over power to a set of collaborators. I'm very sorry to state that Nehru was a collaborator of the British Raj, and that is why he appointed the first Governor General of India as Lord Louis Mountbatten. Pakistan, which also became a dominion, appointed Muhammad Ali Jinnah as the first Governor General. Why could an Indian not have been appointed the first Governor General? And we allowed Mountbatten to be the Governor General, and for 2 years he ruled the roost, and he insisted that the instrument of accession, must be validated by a plebiscite later. It is Mountbatten who imposed it. It is Mountbatten, who subsequently forced Nehru to take the case to the UN and to internationalize the issue. And that the pity is that the Indian army had flowed in, the Indian army had driven the raiders back from the gates of Srinagar. They had fought them, thrown them out of Kargil, thrown them out of Leh, thrown them out of Punch, and they were poised to go further into Muzaffarabad and other places when Nehru insisted on a bloody ceasefire when we were winning. When the army had the terrorists, the bloody raiders and Pakistan army on the run, Nehru went in for a ceasefire. Nehru took the case to the UN, and we have been suffering ever since. There was no need for Article 370. But, Nehru had a great personal friendship with Muhammad Abdullah, and Muhammad Abdullah was virtually now made the Sultan of Jammu and Kashmir. He had the Maharaja Hari Singh exiled from Jammu and Kashmir. He insisted on humiliating the Maharaja, and who was exiled to Bombay. And his son was appointed as Sadr Riyasat. It's very sad, but thank God that he kept a token of Dogra representation in Sadr Riyasat. Maharaja, Karan Singh, who was not appointed the Maharaja, but the Sadr Riyasat, right? And the unfortunate matter is that now Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah, he goes to Nehru and he asked for special guarantees. He asked for special bloody guarantees. Why? Just because on the plea that you are Muslim, do all the 150 million Indian Muslims, very loyal citizens of India, have they got any special guarantee? Have they asked for any special guarantee? What was so bloody special about Muhammad Abdullah and his Sultanate ambitions? It is an amazing fact of history how, some families have made it their personal fiefdom. India is not any fiefdom of some personal family around here that he can do favors to people. So he said, he wanted Article 370, Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah. So Nehru asked him to go to Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, the framer of Indian Constitution and then the Law Minister of India. And Dr. Ambedkar patiently heard out Shri Muhammad Abdullah, Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah. And then do you know what he told him? He said, you want the people of India to pay for the roads, the hospitals, the schools of Jammu and Kashmir, and in return you want the citizens of India to have no bloody rights in Jammu and Kashmir. This is treachery. And I, as the law minister, will never do it. Go and tell that to them. You understood? This was what the father of the Indian Constitution, Dr. Ambedkar, told Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah. He told him that this is not a personal jagir. There can be no such bloody thing. He refused to add Article 370 to the Constitution. So Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah goes crying back to Nehru, and Nehru tells him, he is a very tough critter, he will not do it. So you go to, Gopal Swami Iyengar. He is my man, and you go to him and he will frame for it, this for you. So this was initially framed as Article 306. Later it became 370 of the Constitution, and he framed it, and the Constituent Assembly debates were on. Everybody opposed it, and they asked Gopal Swami Iyengar, why are you doing this? Why this special provision? Circumstances under which the state has exceeded, etc., and therefore this is there. So, because of Nehru's insistence, Article 370 was passed. And then by Nehru treachery, 36A was added. And one good thing that Dr. Ambedkar did before he died, he put this 370 in the temporary provisions of the Constitution. And thereby he saved India a great embarrassment. And when the present government revised Article 370, it was able to do so because it was a temporary provision. So we have Dr. Ambedkar to thank for this, his statesmanship, his foresight, and his vision, that he was able to see into the future and to nullify the effects of this very, very illegal provision which was inserted into the Indian Constitution on the whims and fancies of one man and his fondness for his friend Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah. Within 3 years of taking over as he wanted to be the Prime Minister of the state, and then of course it was made the Chief Minister. This man, Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah, stabbed his so-called friend in the back, Nehru in the back, and he was maneuvering with the CIA to declare Kashmir an independent state. Because the CIA wanted to use the territory of Kashmir for spying for use against China and Russia. He had to be put into prison, Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah. The rest of it is fact of history. So therefore, all this while we should have removed Article 370 several years ago. It is nonsense that this piece of idiotic legislation, very, very legally incorrect legislation. We are a secular democratic republic. We have 150 million loyal Muslims as Indian citizens. They haven't asked for any special protection, any special provisions. Why should these have been given to the people of Kashmir and not Jammu and Kashmir? वो तो अपने बाप की जमीर बना लिया मोहम्मद अब्दुल्ला ने, and they then ruled over Jammu, they ruled over Ladakh, they exploited Jammu, they exploited Ladakh. Only development that went to the family enterprises of Mohammed Abdullah in Kashmir. You know how badly Jammu has been neglected. You know how badly Ladakh has been treated. Kargil district has been treated by these Sunni Caliphate that has tried to establish itself in Srinagar and cock a snook at the Republic of India. Fortunately, in between we had the experiment of Mehbooba Mufti, and she made a fool out of the BJP. Let there be no doubt. Nobody has harmed India so much as Mehbooba Mufti did in the 2 years of the PDP rule. She, you know, in my time when I was fighting in Jammu Kashmir, from 2000 to year of the Lord 2005, there were 4,000 armed terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir. Maar ke unko, we have brought it down to just 150 today. And they have been reduced to 150 since just the last 4 or 5 years. 5 years they have been down to 150. And yet, what did this lady say, this Mehbooba Mufti? Oh, India, Kashmir is going, Kashmir is going, Kashmir is gone. This is the same bloody woman who warned you a rivers of blood will flow. Catastrophe will take place if you remove Article 370. Article 370 has been removed. What has happened in Jammu and Kashmir? It is quieter than it ever was. Have we got that right? It's quieter than it ever was. It is just this. They made a fool out of the present ruling dispensation. They took them for a ride and they tried to remove the army from the hinterland of Jammu Kashmir, from South Kashmir. They emptied the area of the army, pushed the army forward to the border. Who gave them the right to deploy the army? That is the function of the central government. And in that same South Kashmir from where they removed the army, Burhan Wani rose. Because of the bloody patronage of this secessionist state government. And then, you know, because they knew the terrorists had lost the battle, there were just 150 terrorists left. You tell me, when there were 4,000 armed terrorists, 2000, 2005, when I was serving there, Kashmir was never in danger of going out of India's control. How is it in danger of going out of India's control when there are just 150 bloody terrorists? But terrorists whom the state government was trying to protect. And when they knew that they could not fight any longer in Jammu and Kashmir, they started the stone pelting. This brigade of stone pelters, 40,000 stone pelters, who were provided stones by the state government. And when we arrested them and put them behind bars, Mehbooba Mufti released them and put them right back in the streets of Srinagar and South Kashmir to pelt stones at the army, to interfere with the army operation. And the Hurriyat. It is a sad travesty that sections of our intelligence establishment tried to cultivate the bloody Hurriyat in the hope that they would come around and, you know, Gilani, when he became the chief minister, would side with India. Gilani ate all that intelligence funds, kha gaya sala. And then he sold himself out to Pakistan. You know, Pakistan has, for the services rendered, given him that Nishan-e-Pakistan. It just shows who were the masters he was serving. He should have been put behind bars many years ago. It is amazing how we have a capitalistic lobby in our own country. We say, Jane do, Jane do. 10,000 Indian soldiers have been killed defending Kashmir. और आप कह रहे हैं जाने दो over our dead body. Please understand why Kashmir we can never let go of Jammu and Kashmir. You see, at the time of partition, the forefathers of 150 loyal Indian Muslims who are in India, they voted with their feet to stay back in a secular India and not migrate to a theocratic Pakistan. And those who did are still called Muhajirs, refugees, 72 years after they went to Pakistan. And you know the way they are treated. You know the way they have revolted. You know how the Muhajir Qawmi movement started a revolt in Pakistan because they were ill-treated. And here, you want to betray these people, the loyal Muslims like Paramveer Chakra, Havaldar Abdul Hamid, like Brigadier Usman, people who laid down their lives, Indian Muslims fighting for India. You want to betray them by giving away Kashmir to Pakistan? Over our dead bodies it will happen, and it will not happen. And I'm very glad that there is a strong BJP government which is now in power in Delhi. And last year, they took the boldest step of our entire 73 years by nullifying Article 370. It has not been removed because Article 1 says that the defense, external affairs and currency, etc. are the responsibility of the government of India. Sections 2 and 3 have been removed. And J&K has been made into the union territory of Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir. It's not Kashmir. People were talking of trifurcation. That would not have been correct. It is Jammu and Kashmir. And Jammu has the demographic advantage. And very cleverly, the Sultans of Srinagar, they had tried to get more seats with less number of votes for the Kashmir region, so that the Kashmir chief minister would always be a Kashmiri. Why? मतलब ये कोई नई सल्तनत है क्या? With lesser votes, you want to rule over people who have greater votes? That's not the way democracy functions. And it's about time that the Dogras got their true share. The Dogras have founded the state of Jammu and Kashmir. ये कोई खैरात है? Was it given in Dahej to the Sultans of Srinagar? Who the hell appointed them, the Sultans of Ladakh and Sultans of Jammu? The great reversal of history. It is Jammu Dogras who had conquered J&K and made it into a state. And today they were made into sub-class, second-class citizens. And this was merrily going on. And you know, the state governments in Srinagar, they were settling Rohingya Muslim refugees there. They did not let the people who had Sikhs and Hindus who had come from Mirpur and other parts as refugees get citizenship. If a woman married outside, she lost the right. Amazing gender discrimination. And you know what they were doing to the scheduled caste? And they presided over the ethnic cleansing of the Pandits. 4.5 lakh Pandits have been ethnically cleansed from Jammu and Kashmir, while the Union of India watched helplessly. And do you know that the Dogras were being cleansed out of Kishtwar? When I was the sector commander there were 40% Dogras and 60% Muslims there. And I started going for the top terrorist leadership. And you know what they did? They said, we will sort you out, Bakshi Saab. So I thought they would attack my headquarters or ambush me. No, but they started killing the minorities, the Dogras, in the remote villages. One village they killed 5, next village they killed 8, then third village they killed 13, women and children, old men. Ultimately, I chased that bloody group, Lashkar-e-Toiba, which had done this. I hunted them down within 1 month, and we used a flamethrower, and they were burned to ashes. And I shot those pictures in all the villages where they had done the massacre. That was September 2001. That was September 2001. And since then, till the last 2 years, only 2 years before, that is in 2017, there was this killing in Kishtwar of Hindus. Otherwise, all killing stopped, had come to a dead halt. All Dogras who had run away, migrated to Himachal Pradesh and Jammu, came back because we took strong action, because we defended the people. Strange, bloody, the government abjures its duty to protect its citizens. Lets them be driven out. How can any responsible government accept this? But it happened. And this is an amazing fact of life. If we had taken strong action like was taken in Kishtwar, no Hindus are migrated from Kishtwar. They are all there. The Dogras are there. They're still there, very much there. So what I'm trying to say is, this is the history of this movement. What about the future? The future is, I think, absolutely all right. We have to be very strong, very firm. You ask the Chinese about Tibet, and you know what they'll tell you? No, nahi, not yet. No, और किसी भाषा में सुनना है तो सुन लो. No bloody question of Tibet being independent. The Chinese will tell you this. So why can't you talk as firmly? The problem is, when some elements of our own government, they deter, they shake in their boots, and they give the impression, कुछ भी मांग लो, हम दे देंगे. इंसानियत के दायरे में भगवान को नाम हाजिर नाजिर मान के, I don't know, this is amazing. जमहूरियत के दायरे में, that means what you are suggesting is press us a little more and we will give away Kashmir. Why should we? 10,000 soldiers died. Can you give those dead people back to their families? Can you give the father back to the orphan children? The husband back to the wife, the brother back to the sister who died fighting for Jammu and Kashmir? After 10,000 people, you think we will put Jammu and Kashmir on a platter and give it? Absolutely not. Let there be no doubt. And the present government has now told you that not only will we not give Jammu and Kashmir, listen to this carefully, we will also take back POK, that is ours legally. We will also take back Aksai Chin, that is ours legally. Let there be no doubt. If you think India is a pushover who will be pushed by a pariah state like Pakistan, then you are damn sight mistaken. Pakistan lost half its country in trying to break India. You know what happened in 1971. I was part of that war. Okay? And if Pakistan is still trying to take Kashmir by force, you will lose your balanced country. It will be broken into 4 parts. Let Pakistan be very clear. And the nuclear weapons will not save them. They did not save them in the Kargil war. 3 months that war continued and not one nuclear bomb was used. So don't give us this bakwas. We are not impressed anymore by your nuclear bomb. If you have nuclear bomb, we have 150. And they are of much greater tonnage, kilotonnage than yours. 100 KT bombs we have, possibly also the megaton bomb we have. Theirs are just 5 to 6 KT bombs. So they let them not try and impress us with their nuclear arsenal. We will still, this thing. Now real development work has started in Jammu and Kashmir. We should resettle the refugees there. All the Kashmiri Pandits must be settled back if necessary. Ex-servicemen from Jammu first must be employed to guard their colony, because they just can't be go back and left to the mercy of the bloody terrorists, like happened in a number of Kashmiri Pandits that we sent back were massacred. And they are saying, no, they should be without protection. They should go back to the same villages from they were killed, raped and thrown out. I mean, look at this joke. There is a sultanate trying to dictate to the rest of India कि मैं तुम्हारा बाप हूं. Forgive us. India will not take this nonsense anymore. And India has started the rollback And I'm very certain that in the years ahead, decades ahead, whatever time it takes us, that is for the government to decide and for the armed forces. And we are preparing the armed forces for this. And we will take back POK. That belongs to India. You forget about Jammu and Kashmir. You forget about Jammu and Kashmir. You will have to part with POK. You want Kashmir? You can't get it. Try and take it by force. Huh? You tried 4 times, you lost half your country. If you keep trying, you will lose the balance half of your country. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the thoughts on Article 370. Tomorrow is the anniversary of its removal, of its not abrogation, I would say, but of its suspension or its revision. And I thought it was a very welcome step, long overdue step. I'm sorry to hear that there are some sections of our government, some sections of our bureaucracy which are again weakening, which are again planning to go back to the Abdullahs and muftis and trying to tell them to please take charge and we will restore statehood. We must strongly oppose these capitalist people. They are the people who have caused all the problems in J&K by sending mixed signals. We should be firm in our resolve and we should convey the resolve first of all to the people of J&K. आप कहीं नहीं जा रहे, 10,000 साल के बाद भी इस इलाके में भारत का परचम बड़ी शान से फहरा रहा होगा। तो अगर तुमको कोई ख्वाब है कि तुम किसी दिन पाकिस्तान के सिटीजन बन जाओगे, you'll get a kick. We'll kick those people who want to go to Pakistan. They can go right away. They are free to go and apply for Pakistani citizenship, and they'll find out that that countries with a collapsing economy, जो गधे बेच रहे हैं, you want to be part of them, you are most welcome. It's part of a collapsing state, a sinking ship. You want to go down to that sinking ship, do so. But the very pity is they want an Indian passport. They want Indian, all the benefits of the strong, vibrant democracy of India. और जिस थाली में खाते हैं उसमें छेद करते हैं. We have had enough of these people. We will not tolerate them any longer. The people of India are very clear. That is why they have voted the present government into power. And I'm sure nobody should be allowed to do anything to weaken the will and resolve of the government to stay the course and to pursue what we had started last year, see it through to its logical conclusion. Now, if there are any questions and answers, any questions, I'd like to take them on. And thank you for a very patient listening. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. It was absolutely delightful to hear you and, get the first-hand experience and knowledge, which obviously you have after serving in the armed forces. So let me ask if anybody would like to join in and ask a question, because I think somebody was unmuting themselves. Okay. Nothing as of now. So in the meantime, I have a question, sir. So, like you mentioned that we will take POK back and we will take Exarchin back as well, which is very valid point. And I think that's every Indian wants that we want to happen. But being in the armed forces and the current state of our armed forces as well as the current state of situation on the other side of LOC, how do you think if the government has to give the go ahead, can we just do that in days or months? How long does it take for us to do that?
Look, we are getting into the tactical plan. Nobody will reveal tactical plans on public platform.
Sure.
Leave it to the government of India, leave it to the armed forces. And let me tell you, as far as POK is concerned, we have the wherewithal even now to do it. As far as Exarchin is concerned, we will have to prepare a little more. The government has already started that preparation. As you are aware, 30 more jet fighters are coming in. As you are aware, the S-400 armed forces are coming in. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can. We can.
All right. So we've got the S-400 missiles coming in. A lot of the arms and equipment that is needed for such exercises is on the way in. Leave the timeline to the government. Leave the conduct modalities to the government. Whether it can be done, yes, it can be done. How much time it would take depends on what technique we want to use to do it, what kind of military plans we want to do it. I would not like to get into those
Sure.
classified details.
Sure.
But
Understand.
it can be done.
Surely. And with the abrogation of Article 370, or whatever the right term to call it is, the major change which, as a normal citizen of India, one would see is before, anybody who was not a resident of Jammu and Kashmir would not be able to buy land or invest in Jammu and Kashmir, whereas now anybody who is a citizen of India can do so. So as an army officer who has served in Jammu and Kashmir for most of his life, i.e. yourself, would you be coming back and perhaps setting yourself up in Jammu and Kashmir someday?
You see, we had a lot of property in Jammu, and that we unfortunately had to sell because my uncle who was there, my Chachaji, who was principal government science college Jammu, when he passed away, so all that is now gone. But certainly, at a point in time, I may well want to come back. I may well want to come back, and like me, lots of people would. There are lots of ex-servicemen who would like to be back there, and we can provide jobs to our ex-servicemen to protect the funded colonies that are established there. The business people could establish themselves there once the security situation improves, and it will in the coming months. You will see taking a drastic turn for the betterment, because 100 and some odd terrorists have been killed this year out of the 150, and they have just been able to infiltrate about 25, 26 more. So it's just a matter of time before terrorism is snuffed out in Jammu and Kashmir. And then I'm sure the business community would like to invest. The Oberois would like to set up hotels. The other big chains would like to set up hotels there, industries there, and lots of handicraft is there. Ladakh, there is so much of natural things that can be exploited, herbs, medicinal plants, etc. And tourism, adventure tourism, religious tourism, all this, can now the Indian industrial houses can invest and thereby improve the economy of Jammu and Kashmir. Because by themselves, these Kashmiris were buying land in Srinagar, in Jammu, and they were buying land in Delhi.
Yeah.
They would not allow anybody else to buy land. That nonsense will now have to stop. That nonsense will now has been put a stop. And things will change. You will see as time goes on, things will change radically.
We definitely hope so, because yes, you're right. There was a time, and I don't know about the current times at the moment, but I have heard the situation. Even the Dogras from Jammu were not allowed to buy land in Kashmir. That was the situation in the not very old past. But what's the current situation now? I'm not too sure, but I'm very sure things will change in near future. And like you said, ex-servicemen can come back, and pundits need to come back for sure, and hopefully the prosperity will come back to the land. I have one of our listeners from Jammu. His name is Ninad Mahajan. He's messaged me that he would like to say something. So Ninad, if I've taken your name correctly, please join in.
Sir, I'm from Jammu. Sir, I'm a defense parent.
Sorry, Ninad, we can't hear you properly.
Is it audible?
Yeah, slightly, yes.
Hello. Is it audible?
Yes, it is. It is. Yes.
Okay, sir. Jai Hind, sir. I am from Jammu. I am a youth, sir. I am a defense aspirant. I am 19 years old. And sir, you inspire me a lot. Joy. I decided to I decided to pursue this service when I will be doing my UG. And sir, I have watched all your TEDx motivation stories, and it really inspires me a lot, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for
Thank you.
giving such a sessions in YouTube and everything, and inspiring. I know many youngsters like me from Jammu who wanted to go to war and capture the POK, and sir, whatever you were saying, sir. So it really
Inshallah, that will
inspires us a
happen.
lot. Yes, sir. I wish I can be a part of that after my graduation, and I will love to be going to POK and capturing that, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, you inspire me a lot, sir.
God bless you. God bless you.
Th-
You can
Thank
try
you.
for the NDA right away, or otherwise you can do it after graduation via the CDS, Combined Defense Services
Yes, sir.
exam, which will take
I
you
am in.
straight to IMA.
Yes, sir.
I
I am
wish
in
all the best to you,
undergraduate.
and I hope to see you fighting someday and getting
Yes,
us putting the Indian tricolor on our legitimate territory of POK. All the best to
sure,
you.
sir.
God bless you.
Sure, sir.
God bless.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
That's really very motivational, and I'm very glad that we have youngsters like Ninad who think like that and who are defense aspirants. I would just like to put a small point here that many of us and we keep on saying it's POK, but in reality it's POJK. Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and if you see on the map, most of the area which they have taken over is actually of Jammu area, Jammu region, and Ladakh region, and very small portion is of Kashmir region. And maybe sir can give us a more insight on it, but this is what
Sorry,
I have tried to
I could
understand.
not I could not hear the first part of the question. Somebody started
Yeah, no, I
talking.
was I was saying that we call it POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, but in reality it's Pakistan occupied Jammu Kashmir, JK,
Absolutely.
where the area which Pakistan has is mostly area belonging to Jammu region, the Dogra belt, we call it, and the other side, Gilgit Baltistan is part of Ladakh region mainly. So the
Absolutely.
Kashmir is very small area, but because of the Kashmir dispute, the whole of the region gets very much affected and disturbed. Perhaps you can give us more insight on it, if I'm correct or not.
You see, if I am not mistaken and I remember my facts correct, the Kashmir Valley comprises only 6 bloody percent of the total land area of Jammu and Kashmir. And yet, this bloody valley, there are just about 6 damn districts. And out of those districts, there are just about 5 of them which are the real problem areas where this secessionism has been allowed to thrive by all the past governments. And they wanted to go to Pakistan and take the rest of Jammu, Riyasi, Kishtwar, Rajouri, Punch, Ladakh, Kargil as Dahej.
Yeah.
Dahej, you see, that is the 6% of the land area is the valley of Kashmir. Firstly, they wanted to be the sultans of the whole of Jammu and Kashmir as if they had conquered Jammu and Kashmir and made it a state. It is the Dogras who had done so, you know. And
Yeah.
6% of the land area wants to rule firstly the whole land area and then take it away as Dahej when they want to go somewhere, secede somewhere, because unko laga ki we will be treated better. They would have gotten a shock of their life had that ever happened by the treatment they would have gotten from the Punjabi Musalmans.
Yeah.
So what has happened to POK? आजकल वो वहां पे नारे लग रहे हैं ये जो दहशत गर्दी है उसके पीछे वर्दी है एंड दे वांट आजादी फ्रॉम द पाकिस्तानी आर्मी ये पीओके में नारे लग रहे हैं so we have allowed some people to take us for a ride for far too long and you are absolutely right there is no business that this belongs only to Kashmir. You see, once I was traveling through Jammu and I remember that slogan that was painted on the wall, सबके मुंह पे है कश्मीर कौन बदलेगा जम्मू की तस्वीर.
जी.
Everybody is talking about Kashmir, Kashmir. People forget that it is Jammu and Kashmir. And frankly, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh.
Absolutely.
So the people of Ladakh were totally those poor Buddhists. There was almost a campaign to convert them, forcibly convert them. This is the Sultanate of Kashmir that has been dismantled last year. Let's please now stick with our resolve, not weaken our resolve, because all sorts of these bureaucrats and नौकर shahs who have a vested interest, they come crying कि नहीं जी इनको accommodate करो, हुरियत के बगैर कुछ हो नहीं सकता. ये अब माफ कीजिए for using strong language, ये हरामखोर है. जो मुफ्ती का खाते हैं हमें हरामखोर कहा जाता है. भारत का खाया, पाकिस्तान का खाया और अपने बच्चों को सऊदी अरेबिया और मलेशिया और अमेरिका और इंग्लैंड भेजा, औरों के बच्चे मरवा रहे. They need to be behind bars with Hurriyat. No question of negotiating with Hurriyat. The very strange thing is that Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani was treated as the Prime Minister Free State of Jammu and Kashmir. If you please, some of our people had their way. Those who want to surrender, this must be stopped. This must be stopped. It has been stopped, and we should keep it that way.
Absolutely, and I think I would like to add one thing here is since the removal or abrogation of Article 370, it has given a big ray of hope to people, because before that, I think people of Jammu and people of Ladakh had lost all their hopes. They knew what was going on, they knew what wrong was happening, how things were being manipulated and changed, but they kept quiet because they knew nobody was going to listen to them. Now, since this article has gone away, the hope which has come in and the confidence which has brought with it, I think that is what is very important. Ladakh is now a separate UT and they are prospering at their end. Jammu is raising their voice, especially where everything was Kashmir. So the Kashmir voice was taken as the voice of Jammu as well as Ladakh in the past. If you go outside India, nobody knew whether Jammu existed or Ladakh is a separate place altogether or with different demography. I think that has come out very well since this has happened. So I think that's again is a positive change, which in coming years we would see a positive impact of. And I hope it will give us more and more courage to speak up for Jammu and for other places which were kind of hidden behind Kashmir hegemony in the past. I've got my colleague Lalit. He has raised his hand. I think he wants to say something. So Lalitji, please.
Good evening, Major General Bakshi, sir. We've discussed, and you very rightly said, about how the state of Jammu and Kashmir in totality was formed by the Dogras, and then how the Dogras were treated as a second citizen of the same state, which was very much formed by them. So I wanted to ask that when this 370 and 35A was taken away, and the state which were we formed with so much difficulty was broken into Ladakh as a UT and Jammu and Kashmir as a UT. There's two folds to my question. First is, do you think this was necessary to break Ladakh and have Jammu Kashmir as separate? And second, I would like, do you think for Jammu and Dogras to get their due recognition, you see further trifurcation? Do you see that Jammu would become a separate state and Kashmir separate, and that's the solution?
Let me tell you first about the first part of the question. I have no doubts in my mind, and neither should anyone here. This was the very correct decision which was taken. It was very delayed. It should have been taken immediately after independence. We should not have had Article 370. That's why I told you that no less a person than Dr. Ambedkar, the framer of the Indian Constitution, had opposed it tooth, nail and claw. And he had put it in the temporary provisions very intelligently. He was a master of law and he understood the implications. It was very dangerous to say, I have a secular
constitution. But because Kashmir is a Muslim majority area, I must give it special protection. Why? Do you have a secular constitution or you do not have a secular constitution? So why is 370 required? If it is not required in Meerut, it is not required in UP, Aligarh, Azamgarh, wherever you want. Why should it be applied in this thing? Tomorrow you will say the Muslims of Kerala can ask for it. Utter nonsense. We have a constitutional framework and that applies to every bit of the territory. There can be no partial application of the constitution by the whims and fancies of a particular set of family. So it was an absolutely right decision. देर आए दुरुस्त आए, देर आए दुरुस्त आए, बहुत सही किया. And as far as do I see them being reintegrated? No, and oh no, they should not be. And Ladakh is separate, very distinctly separate because of the, there are a lot of security ramifications that come in. Understand that not only is defense directly controlled by Delhi, also, have you understood the implications of that? That if it was a state government, union territory, Gundas, you see the Gundas of the Sultanate. So I think I don't see a foreseeable change in the near future. There are lots of people who are clamoring for that they will not take part in elections unless Jammu and Kashmir is again made a state and handed back to them. Matlab, the government of India must apologize for taking away Article 370, put it on a platter, gift wrap it, tie a red ribbon and give it back to the Abdullah family or the Mufti family. Say, please take it back. We are so sorry. No, it won't happen in a month of Sundays, all right? Get it out of your head. You live with it. The Indian government has taken a decision and that will stand. And if somebody thinks they can change it, उनके जो आका पाकिस्तान में या चीन में बैठे हैं, they can change it by military force, you can think again. If you think India is a pushover, you will find out on the battlefield, the kind of price you are made to pay for even attempting this. So Jammu, the territory of Jammu, the territory of Kashmir, the territory of Ladakh, to my mind, is here to stay. It was a very sensible, though inordinately delayed decision. We should stick by this decision. We should hold firm. And we should do our best now to integrate POK, Gilgit-Baltistan, Aksai Chin.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, I've got a very quick and short question on Facebook by someone for you. They're saying, can you please throw some light on your career to motivate youngsters? And I think it's a very valid question for many.
Well, I'm not sure how many recruits from London are going to join the Indian Army, but I'm sure you all will support us. You all will support us because we need the support of the Indian population. And I'm very happy to say I've been around to the diaspora in London. I've been around to the diaspora in the United States, in Hong Kong, in a number of these countries. And I find them very honestly more motivated than a lot of our people back in India are. Very motivated about their motherland, about their mother country, about their civilizational ethos and culture, and the need to preserve that culture. I'm very happy to see the Dogra Hindus of London get together in this manner to preserve their culture. You know what is the greatest thing about the Indian civilization? Its sheer persistence, its age, and its continuity in space and time. I have done studies on the Indus Valley civilization. 60% of the Indus Valley sites were not on the Indus River. I hope you know they were on the Saraswati River. And the Angrez historians told us that Saraswati to ek kahani hai. It is a myth. The leftist historians are still telling us It is a myth. The only thing is that some of those idiots have not seen the satellite photographs taken out, thousands of satellite photographs taken out by the Landsat American satellite, by the ISRO satellites. You know, we have a very vibrant space research organization which has launched the maximum number of satellites in the bloody world. And they have photographed the whole course of the river Saraswati from the Himalayas to the sea. Yet people want to tell us कि साहब जो अंग्रेज बोल गए वो बिल्कुल सही था, वो अंग्रेजों के जमाने के जेलर थे. You know, that kind of a joke. So history needs to change, and in the Sindhu Saraswati civilization, we found a lot of terracotta dolls, you know, dolls of females, and you know they had sindoor in the median parting of their hair. They had bindis in the center of their foreheads. They were wearing bangles, like the women of today wear bangles. They were dolls, terracotta dolls and figurines found in the postures of yoga, hatha yoga. They were terracotta dolls found in the posture of meditation. That means the present Hindu civilization, what characterizes the Hindu civilization? Yoga and ध्यान. धीमहि. जब आप गायत्री बोलते हैं आप क्या कहते हैं? यो यो न प्रचोदयात् स्वाहा, भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि. We meditate upon that. Vedic culture goes back to the Saraswati time, which incidentally some of the ruins have been carbon dated to 9,000 years from today. Carbon dated. ये नहीं कि किसी जीडी बख्शी ने बोला, कोई आरएसएस वाले ने बोल दिया तो we have to accept it. No. Carbon dated. Empirical scientific evidence of how old your culture is. It is 10,000 years old and continues. The parallel civilizations of Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, dead and gone, changed beyond recognition. Egypt के लोग वही हैं जिन्होंने pyramid बनाया. They've all been Islamized. They don't know a damn thing about the pharaohs and the pyramid.
Absolutely.
Yet the Indian civilization continues. You must see that it continues. Where you are heirs of a very ancient living civilization. It's not dead. It's alive. And it is up to you to keep it alive. It is up to you to pass the heritage, the Indian heritage, on to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. They must know who they are. They must know what their real identity is. And they must have, you can have dual citizenship now. You know, I mean, those kind of things are there. We are making provisions for them. Even if you do not, you must never let go of your ancient spiritual heritage, cultural heritage. It is 10,000 years old, and so help us God, continuing. So it is great to defend that. In my 37 years in the army as an officer, I got a chance to defend that. The bulk of my army career was spent fighting. And to very briefly answer your question, my batch is the batch of 1971. We were commissioned a month before the war so that we could go in as cannon fodder. And we took part in that war at the cutting edge as second lieutenants. And on the very first day of the war, I lost so many of my batchmates. They died, they were killed, they were wounded, they lost their legs, they lost their arms. But yet, we are very proud of the fact that in 14 bloody days, we had cut Pakistan in two. We had marched on the enemy capital of East Pakistan, that was Dhaka.
Yeah.
We had flown the Indian tricolor there. And 93,000 Pakistani prisoners of war had laid down their arms, which is the largest surrender in the history of the world after the Second World War. That's what Indians have done. Indians did it. Not the British Indian Army that did it, it's the Indian Army that did it. It broke a country in two, it changed the map of South Asia and the world. You know, some people tell us that you can't change your neighbors, learn to live with them, talve chato, paon pakdo. We may not be able to change our neighbors, but let me tell our neighbors, we know how to change maps. All right? We have changed maps. I fought subsequently in Punjab, counter-terrorist operations. I commanded a Sikh company against Sikh terrorists in the Punjab. I never got greater loyalty than any of my boys then from the Sikh boys who I led in Punjab in a very emotive times, very emotional times. We had 1984, you know, we had the Golden Temple, the attack on the
Yeah.
Golden Temple, and they were very hurt. And yet, I'm very glad to say I'm very grateful to them that they were loyal to their country, they were loyal to their salt, and they were loyal to me and the company commander. Then I fought next in Kargil. I led operations in Kargil, 1990-91, the first intrusions which were blanked out of the paper. There were 6 of my boys killed, 21 wounded, one of them lost their eyes. My unit got 1 Veer Chakra posthumous, 4 Sena medals. I was given the Vishish Seva medal. That was the scale of fighting. That was the scale of fighting. Artillery, mortars, Grad P, tubes, the works, air defense, guns, field artillery, everything was being used in that very fierce fight there. So I got my Vishish Seva medal there as a lieutenant colonel, as the commanding officer of 6th Battalion, Jammu and Kashmir Rifles. The same J&K rifles I was commissioned in, which my father and my brother had served. Then I commanded my brigade in Kishtwar. I just told you about that. And
Yeah.
there I got my Sena medal. And we killed a record number of terrorists, 108 terrorists in one, you know, when they, that many have not been killed in one single year since my time. Okay. And I got the Sena medal, as I said, there for that. And then I rose to be the general officer commanding Romeo Force, that is in Rajouri and Poonch. That was the worst area of terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir when I went. By the time I came out, it was the most peaceful area. People were going for picnics in the area where they dare not, you know, step out. So I have a great sense of satisfaction. I have done my duty by my country, by my flag, by my regiment, by my unit. I'm grateful to all the boys that I had the privilege to command, who many of them unquestioningly laid down their lives. They were wounded, they were hurt. One of them lost both his eyes, he's still blind. I feel for him a lot. But they did their duty. And I'm sure the generations to come will continue with this tradition of soldiering. And the Dogra especially have a great tradition. Maharaja Gulab Singh, General Zorawar Singh. And I hope you know that the Dogras are mentioned in the Mahabharata as the Dogritas and Tigritas. You know who the Dogritas were? In the land of the 2 rivers, that is around Jammu. The Tigritas were in the land of the 3 rivers, that is Himachal Pradesh. The Dogritas and Tigritas were mentioned in the Mahabharata. And they had fought on the side of the Kauravas. Because they say, हमने उनका नमक खाया है. Even if God is on the other side, we will fight. And we will do our duty. And the fiercest battle that Arjun got was from the Dogritas and Tigritas. That tradition of soldiering goes back to the Mahabharata era. You have continued with it. You have Maharaja Gulab Singh, General Zorawar Singh, General Bad Singh, and so many heroes, Brigadier Rajinder Singh, you know, Brigadier Sher Jang Thapa. He was also of the state forces. He also got a Mahavir Chakra. He also was one of the commanding officers of my unit, which has produced many great warriors, by the way. So I hope this tradition of warriors will go on. I'm very sorry to say that Gandhi Giri has become a great fashion. You know, because of Richard Attenborough, Gandhi Giri has become the new fashion. And it is extremely sad. I'm very sad that it is so, because for 800 years, India has been invaded, you know, our people have been slaughtered like cattle, our mandirs have been destroyed, our cities have been burnt, our libraries have been burnt, our women have been raped. And if your answer is Gandhi Giri, then I can only feel sorry for you. But let me tell you, it has changed. And the whole thing changed with the Sikh Gurus, The whole history changed with the Sikh Gurus in Punjab, with Chhatrapati Maharaja, Shivaji Maharaj, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj in Maharashtra, Lachit Burpu Khan in Assam, and with the Dogras of Gulab Singh and Zorawar Singh in Jammu and Kashmir. Our history changed. We had a military revival that ended with the breakup of Pakistan in two. Breakup of Pakistan. So you have a great tradition of soldiering to fall back upon. Please keep it alive. Those of you whose kids want to go back to India, let them go. This is where the future is. India is going to be the next superpower. Let me give that to you and writing today. We are going to be the next superpower.
Absolutely.
So you will be heading in the right direction even if you head back. I mean, you are
Yeah.
free to be wherever you are, but if your children and grandchildren want to head back, and they will want to head back if you bring them up the way they should be. Thank you very much for being so patient.
Thank you very much, sir.
Greetings to
Thank
all
you.
the Indian diaspora in London. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.
Jai Bharat, Jai Hind, sir. Just a closing note. I was just going through some comments on Facebook. Somebody has put a very nice comment here that, sir, one request for you. You come as governor of UT J&K, Lieutenant Governor of UT J&K, then see what happens here. Definitely, we need someone like yourself who is decision maker and
That's so very kind of you. People have
neutral and
been
natural.
threatening to make me governor of Jammu and Kashmir for a number of years now. So thank you for your good wishes.
Thank you. And I have Shreya Mudgil. She's been insisting me that she wants to say something. So I would just take her last and then we'll wrap it up.
Good
Shreya.
evening, sir. So first of all, I'd like to share that you are many people's inspiration for many different reasons. I've been reading your books for some time now, Footprints in the Snow and Saga of Fateh Shivji. I like how you characterize them as this crack regiment and kind of give them this really fantastical character. So you're my inspiration for book reading, strategy, defense, everything else, sir. It's good to speak to you for the first time. And I had a
Thank you.
question, which rather, I don't know if you would want to take it at the end or if you've already exhausted with whatever we've spoken before.
Sorry,
So my
okay.
question was that I understand that, having faith on the government and on the country is a good thing in terms of, not being able to know the logistical strategy right now of the about the reintegration of Gilgit-Baltistan. But I wanted to ask that, do you think it's a good thing? I mean, what else can we do about it in the sense that it's legally far from us, it's culturally far from us. So in that scenario, when we don't know what is the path ahead, it's kind of sometimes it makes us feel things are a distant dream. So
Well, in answer, I'll just say, I'll quote Colonel T.E. Lawrence. I wonder if you heard his name, Lawrence of Arabia. You heard that name?
yes, sir.
Yes, okay. I'll quote I'll quote Colonel T.E. Lawrence. He said, "All men dream."
But not all men dream big.
In
Okay.
up by to find that it is vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men. They act their dreams with their eyes open to make them possible. You got that? We have a dream. I have a dream. And if I work towards the fulfillment of the dream, where there is a will, there is a way. That's all that I will say. And that rhymes.
Thank you very much, sir.
Where there is a will, there is a way.
What a great inspiration you are, sir. No doubt about it. Like many are saying, and I'm glad the youth is motivated and following yourself, and that's the best way forward. I would just like to add what sir has said. Wherever there is a will, there is a way. If you dream big, you'll get it. And the bigger thing is to believe in yourself. That's what needs to be done as well by us, like the youth. I'm also a Dogra, and now I feel more Dogra than when I was in Jammu back maybe 10, 15 years ago. So it's very important that we take pride in our history, we take pride in our culture, we take pride in our, you know, what our elders have done. And listening to Major General G.D. Bakshi sir, I think I have, this is my first time talking to him directly one on one, and it has maybe 100 times more motivated me than what I was maybe a day ago. So, you know, that's what it should be for every one of us, be it we are in London, US, or back home in Jammu, for everybody to be inspired, motivated, and dream big. That's what would get you the results. So with this, I would like to thank once again G.D. Bakshi sir for taking out his very busy time and, you know, giving us that hour and a half or maybe more, talking to us and inspiring us and giving us the valuable historical knowledge which you have. And we would really hope that, sir, we will be able to talk to you again at some point in future and perhaps learn more from you.
Thank you indeed. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir. Jai Hind. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Take care. Thank you.